Hello there, welcome to Genesis Models. My name is Bobby Waldron and this is going to be the next step-by-step video build here at Genesis Models, which is going to be building our Hawker Siddeley Harrier GR.3 1/76 scale by Airfix. Now for this step-by-step video build, don't worry about what kit you sort of buy really. I just recommend, go buy whatever you want. 1/72 scale would be a good scale to start off with. I mean, Spitfires, it's probably more simpler than this as well actually. There's something nice, easy, simple, it doesn't have to be expensive. The whole point of this video is actually going off and me showing you the basics, the foundations of modeling. I'm going to put myself in your shoes as an absolute beginner. Maybe this is your first or second or maybe third kit you've ever built, and you might be looking at my step-by-steps, my other step-by-steps. You might be thinking that's going a bit too advanced, and the other thing is tools. The cost of this hobby is it is quite high. I mean, you can go really high cost wise with this hobby. I mean, you can keep things to the basics and still produce some very nice models, but really as a complete beginner, you're gonna be faced with this whole, buying a compressor, buying an airbrush. There's 300 quid just gone, all the paints, all the tools. I mean, it really does mount up, and that's what this video is all about, is keeping in mind about that. So all these tools, all these paints, I'm literally hardly not going to touch any of them. I'm only going to be picking out the tools and the paints and the kit that, if I was an absolute beginner and the budget was, I don't know, maybe no more than 100 quid, what would I use, right? So all fancy tools are out the window. We're probably just going to use cutters for cutting them off the sprue, maybe a blade, maybe just one type of sanding stick, and what I would use, where I buy them from, how much they cost, and even the paints. I mean, actually you can get these kits where Airfix, for one, you get these paint pots that sort of come with them. You get a little crappy brush, and actually you normally get, if I've got one, you normally get these little bits of glue pots as well, which you could use just to cut down on the cost, because they sort of come with them as like a sort of starter kit, and that's what this step-by-step is going to be all about anyway. So I'm going to get cracking on with this. If you want to sort of follow along, remember you can watch this on YouTube. This will be as a series on YouTube, or you can go to Genesis Models website and you can watch it there. Also you can also subscribe, where you can see all the more advanced sort of builds and really sort of get into the hobby. But this is just nicely getting you beginners sort of moving along in your hobby. So let's get started with Airfix's Hawker Siddeley Harrier GR.3. So to quickly just start off, let's have a look at this kit itself and let's see what we are actually dealing with, right? So open this up, it's all in one bag, right? Let's get out a blade, right? By the way, I mean, we're going to be using a blade throughout this video. Simple Swan Morton blade with number 11 blade on the end. You can pay like £3 or something just for the handle. I have gone off and you can buy like a box of 100 for like a tenner, and they last forever. But these number 11 blades, they really don't cost a lot to go out and get. So that is probably the first tool you want to be going off and getting. and you can get them at any online hobby store or even your local hobby store. They're very, very common. Looking at this, let's have a quick look at our canopy first. Right, and hopefully Airfix has got this right, because if you're new to the hobby, Airfix can be sometimes a pain with their canopy. So bring you in nice and close. It's looking, you know, sort of nice, crystal clear. I'm not seeing any sort of nasty, you know, mold effects like cobweb effects and stuff. Looking nice and shiny, so we shouldn't have any problems with them, which is good. Quick looking at our first sprues. Our first sprue here, we've got a few kind of just bits and bobs on here. It is going to be recessed panel lines, so that's a good one for, you know, modelling. We're going to be able to put washes in there and bring out the detail. We've got our wheels, we've got some fairly good detail there. Landing gear has got some detail on there. We've maybe got some slight flash. Well, I wouldn't say flash, I mean, you've got some mould lines to probably scrape out, but I mean, no real sort of flash. On the opposite side, I'm not seeing any sort of ejector pin marks that are nastily going to be in the wrong place. I mean, we do have some inside here, but I do believe we're not going to see this side. We're going to see where the detail is, which there's no ejector pin marks there. We're going to be able to put weapons on this, which is going to be cool. We've got our fuel probe just here, so that might be a different option. We'll look at the instructions in a bit. We've got our actual pylons also. Bit of detail here for our sidewinders just there, which the sidewinders are here, and you put that over pit that I just showed you. We've got some nose section just here with recessed panel lines. And let's have a look at the main body. We've got the main body, let's just get this out of the way. We've got the main body just here. As you can see, I mean, the detail, the recessed panel lines, they do sort of overlap over here and they do fade a little bit, so we may want to sort of sort them out, a bit of scribing maybe. We do have recess rivets just inside there. They're not looking too bad. We have got quite a fair bit of nice detail all over. It's looking very crisp and very sort of consistent. Again, we've got some more wheel detail with this. We've got our air intakes here, which we do have some ejector pin marks in there, which they could be a problem. We do have a pilot. If you do want to go, you know, pilot in, which I'm going to actually be going pilot in with this. In fact, I'm going to be going in-flight display with this one, to be honest. Two more sprues. We have the main sort of surface detail on the top of our wings. As you can see, lovely sort of crisp recessed panel line detail, looking very nice actually. Some nice raised bits going along here as well. The underside of the wings also with the spaces for our pylons. Right, we have instrument display panel here, which is totally blank, so I'm assuming there's going to be some decals in here for instrument display panels. Last sprue, we've got the other half of our fuselage section. Again, same lovely level of detail. Some fuel tanks, right, and we do have these air intakes slots, which you can have them in different positions so they're open or closed. You'll see more later in the instructions, which we have just here. Here are the decals, which I do believe are by Cartograph. Now, Cartograph are an absolute fantastic decal company. They're in Italy. They do some of the best decals out there. Really good for any kind of decaling. As you can see, yes, we do have the instrument display panel just here. It is got sort of like a nice matte finish. The small writing is almost readable. Everything's in registry, the colours are looking good, and we've got lots of sort of stencil work, so we could put a lot of effort into our decaling, which I do like because it kind of does bring out those models. Now, how this goes together, well, first off, we've got a nice good little bit of a description just here, which is good to sort of read up about what we're actually building. Right, and then it starts off with the cockpit, nice and simple, moving into the air intakes. Right, after the air intakes. We've got some other sort of detail work here for in-flight display and stuff. Going to be a bit of work to do before we actually bring the two halves together. But don't forget your options, because depending on what options you take, you're going to be cutting this and cutting that before you put it together. The rear part, the wing section, looks good so far. We're probably going to maybe have a fit issue here, because normally with these kind of kits where you've got two halves of the fuel, two halves of your fuselage coming together, and then you put like a wing section on top like this, there's potential for fit problems, gaps, that kind of stuff. But then again, this is going to be a basic build, so we probably won't worry about them too much, not at this stage of your hobby, so to speak. Then we've got weapons and stuff. You know, you're going to want to put your pylons on and beef it up with weapons and fuel tanks and all these cool things. We've got our engine sections here for like vertical takeoff and stuff. I do believe you can have that in a moving position, but personally I like to just glue them in place, and you know, no need to fuss about them. Then we've got landing gear, which for this one, as I say, I'm going to be doing an in-flight display. Doing in-flight display is probably is normally easier to actually build, because when building a scale model, if you have the landing gear down, you've got a whole load more effort sort of, you know, sorting out your wheel wells and painting them up, weathering them up, all your different wheel well doors, and normally you sort of have to sort of have them on locking clamps or blue tack and cocktail sticks, you know, like this kind of stuff, and you kind of stick them on there, and you got all these pieces everywhere. You spray them all separately or paintbrush them all separately, and you know, it's a lot of extra work. But in-flight display, you just get your wheel well doors and you just glue in place and lock it down. So maybe you might want to go down that route just to sort of save you that extra bit of work, just because really, I mean, to get into being a professional modeler, it's just, you're not going to sort of get there the first build, but you just keep building, and 10 builds down the line and you're getting better and you get better, and then you're producing professional models. So maybe that's a route you might want to go and take. We have got sort of like air brakes you can have open and close, and all these kind of things that kind of look cool when you open them up and close, open everything all up, but you know, it's more work to do, so that's totally sort of up to you. And then we've got all our weapons loadout, which is nice that they've shown us how we can sort of load this up. I like to make mine nice and beefy. Moving along, we've then got, it looks like, two different types of markings. We've got the whole, I think it's a natural metal finish on the underside, or is it all a light? I think it's light aircraft grey. You've got that underside sort of light aircraft grey, two-stage camo on top, or you can have the good old all-round camo. I think I'm going to go for the all-round camo with this. Shows you all the different decal markings, and then we've got our stencils on the back, which is all your little stencils that go here and everywhere, which goes for both of them. So that's the kit itself. Let's get building it. So before you get started, you want to study your instructions. I mean, you really want to sort of, you know, have a quick go through all the way through, because there'll be certain different options that will kind of stand out, and you know, if you don't do something in the beginning, then you can't do something at the end, and that might be something you want to do, i.e. cutting this out or cutting that out so you can glue this in at the end. It's a good idea just to go through everything and sort of you know, sort of really sort of just study it. And we're going to start off as normal really with modeling, is starting off with the cockpit. So I'm just looking at this, and normally, you know, you're going to want your fuselage halves, because those are going to come together. So I'm going to cut them off first. There is a bit of decaling, you know, do take note. You can have things like this. It will say, oh, you know, you want that decal going on there, and I do believe on the instrument display panel it's like, put this decal on there. It does actually say, if you do look and study this area of the instructions will say stuff like, you know, decals is a square box, as you can see, and it will say number 5 in there, so that's decal number 5. You know, those kind of things, I know they're kind of silly, but you know, if you know what's going on and what represents what, you're more sorted. So first off, we want to go out and get some cutters for this, really. Some cutters and a blade just to get sort of started. We've already talked about the blade. Cutters, you know, again, they are really sort of basic tools. You can get them absolutely anywhere. I do believe these by Trumpeter, I think it was. No real big deal. I mean, maybe spend around about £6-7. I mean, you don't really have to go off and buy branded. I mean, I have brought the Citadel ones. These are really expensive. I think they were like 20 quid or something stupid like that. But I brought them because they are really good. They've got a nice bounce to them, good quality. You can spend, you know, I spent like £6 on these. Now, when it comes to cutting them off the sprue, what you don't want to be doing is going off and maybe sort of breaking them off. You sort of, you know, I mean, I'll do this one as an example. You know, you don't really want to be doing something like that because the plastic can tear and sort of rip out actual detail. Because what we have, if we bring you in, these tabs, right, end on the actual model here, and what we want to do is when we bring our two fuselage halves together, we want it to look seamless. We don't want to make it look as though, you know, we've glued two halves together and you can see that glue line down there, because it's not realistic. And if we sort of rip them off of the sprue, it's then going to sort of leave a mark inside the plastic, so then we have to add filler, which then gives us more work to do. So what I like to do is not get your pliers like this, where it's right up against the detail work, because we could still damage the plastic. If we turn them this way, as you can see, we're just a couple of mil away from the actual piece. So when we cut into this, we're going to leave that nice bit of a tab just on there, nice and easy, and we're not damaging the model in any way, shape or form. We have got these tabs now to sort out, which I mean, sometimes, I mean, I do kind of like maybe trim it a little bit more, right, just to get some of it out the way, most of it out the way, like so, but still leaving like a mil or two of those tabs left. Now, there are different ways we can go about this. I mean, we could go off and use a blade, or we could use some sanding sticks. Me personally, I'd sort of recommend, you know, just come along with a blade and then start to slice off, you know, most of this tab. So maybe you can just feel a little bit of that tab left. I've not come right down to the actual detail work because the blade's more of a sharp, you know, slicing it off, it's not going to leave any sort of marks like these cutters. If you did it, it would sort of, it more sort of tears and cuts it sort of thing, whereas these blades, they do nicely slice it away. But to get probably the best finish, you know, at this stage you might want to go off and get some sanding sticks. Now I like these nice sponge sanding sticks. I'm going to be using this one for this build. You know, you can go off, it depends where you go. I mean, there's all sorts of different manufacturers out there, but you know, any online shop is going to sell sanding sticks, or any sort of hobby shop is going to sell sanding sticks. A nice sort of fine grit, a spongy one is normally a good one, because normally we're going to be going with curvatures and stuff, and you can maybe get them in maybe a set of 3 for maybe £6 ish or somewhere around there. And basically what you do is, where we've got our little tab, you can just nicely sand that to a nice smooth finish. But don't worry about it too much, because we are going to be gluing this together and we're going to have to come back and sand that anyway later, just as long as, you know, it's not going to hinder putting our two halves of the fuselage together. So what we want to do is go out and now cut out and nicely get everything nicely trimmed up and all nice and neat. Also, I mean, another thing is as well, if I can just get an example piece.